Polynesia in the hot seat, where we highlight the voices, stories, and power of our Pacific people. Our guest today is the very definition of strength, service, and soul. From the frigid courts of Anchorage to the roaring stadiums of the NFL to building a legacy as a father of five, a husband, and community leader. Tonight, we talk about faith, football, family, and how to rise when life forces a new playbook. Let's welcome Tosi to the hot seat. Welcome, Tosi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. What's up, everybody?
We're so glad to have you on our show. It's been so long. The last time I believe we saw you and your family, you guys were at the Alaska Club, and your kids were training. So I know that you're currently in Alaska. What brought you back to Alaska? I think was it for family or?
No, I'm always in Alaska. Actually, I mean, I work here, so back and forth is kind of what I try to do and balance it as best as I can. But I love being in Alaska. All my family, all my kids are born and raised in Alaska. But my wife's from Arizona, so I mean, she's always hated Alaska. So she gave me 20 years up here. I'm gonna try to do my best to give her some time down there. So we'll see.
So I learned that you were born in American Samoa, right?
Yeah.
What village is your family from?
My mom is from Kapakimu and my dad is from Vailoa. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, the Fawa family and the Siva family are them. So, but yeah, I was born there. I think we left there when I was about 3 and moved to San Diego from there. But
And
yeah, no,
wait,
it was a hard.
go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, it was issues. I had a real bad eczema, like my whole body would break out, and they couldn't figure out. But for some reason, I guess the cure was on the mainland.
Mhm.
So we had headed up.
Hello? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. So you guys, you found out you had eczema in Samoa, or was it in California? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that part.
it was in Samoa. I when I mean the way they explain it is when they touch my skin, it would start bleeding or pussing, and so I mean that was just my whole body. I mean when I was growing up, they called me Black Scab. Growing up was my name, so ugly duckling kind of deal um, was the time. But moving to so for me, I was only 3 years old, so it's probably one of my first memories were started in San Diego and growing up there.
I bet you they had put some gloves on your finger just to stop you from scratching, right?
I think they tried everything. I mean, they tried everything to where they had to leave the island.
Yeah.
And so I guess it started to heal and started to get better as I got older. But yeah, it's always an issue ongoing. You do what you can, lotion up.
Yeah, my fifth child, she's 12 right now, and she's got severe eczema, so
But
I know the
I mean,
feeling. Yeah,
I
yeah. So,
yeah, no fun, no fun.
you guys were in San Diego, and what led you guys to come to Alaska? And how old were you at that time?
So I was about 13 because we left after sixth grade and we moved to Alaska. I don't know what this, I mean, it was like within a week or two. So it surprised me and my siblings that we were on the way out. I mean, I think my sister said she just came home from being out with her friends, and next thing she knows, we're in the car driving to Alaska. So it took us about a month or two to get to Alaska because we stopped in Washington. We got a lot of family in Seattle area, So we stopped there and thought we were going to stay there. We ended up staying there for a few weeks, and my dad's sisters lived there, and so we thought we were going to stay there, and ended up driving off because no matter what, my mom was determined to get to Alaska for some reason.
So when you guys arrived in Alaska, you're coming from a whole new different weather in San Diego to Alaska, and it's sixth grade. You're going through all these hormones, so a lot of changes, and it must have been very tough
Yeah,
for you, especially as the youngest.
yeah, no, it was a lot of change. You go from, because it's funny when we got into Alaska because we drove, and when we were driving in, we drove on the one highway, the Glen Highway, I think it was. And when we got into town, we ended up at a park at the end of downtown, and I remember getting out the car and we're looking at each other at the park down there, like, okay, now what do we do and stuff. So we ended up driving to from there to I think it was like a bar for some reason, but some Samoans came out of there. I mean, the first people we saw, it wasn't Eskimos or natives or anything else. It was Samoans. It was so surprising. Back in 1988, I mean, we ran into Samoans, and they ended up taking us to our family's place in Eagle River. And
Mm.
so me and my brother, we ended up going to Gruning Middle School out in Eagle River for about a month or two before we got our own place. But it was a big culture shock just because I mean I grew up around just a diverse community, everything, and so when we ended up in the Eagle River going to school, it was a scary place for us.
Yeah.
I mean I was surrounded by a lot of white people. I mean it's not something I was around ever, so it was a big difference.
Did you hit your growth spurt during that time?
I think I was always kind of tall
Mhm.
during that time, so I was always taller than the other kids around. So I mean, it just yeah, I've never really noticed other than when I look back at pictures on how much bigger I was than most of the kids.
And how many siblings do you have?
I've got five brothers, two sisters. I'm the youngest of them all. Um, yeah, and they've been a big part of everything that my life has been and molded the person I am.
Mhm.
So a lot of times, growing up, my parents weren't around too much to where, and in a lot of the families, it's usually the siblings that are watching over the youngest ones. So that's
Mhm.
that's how it was with us too.
Was it hard for you guys being in the car driving for all that long distance up to Alaska? How was it for you guys?
I think for me, and I have another brother who's a year older than me. It really more seemed like an adventure, just
Mhm.
a fun experience. We're riding in the back of a pickup or in my parents' four-door car, because we took two cars. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, it was fun for me. Even yeah, I enjoyed the whole trip up there. I don't know how, but when we were driving to Alaska from San Diego, we ended up in Reno, Nevada.
How'd you guys
So
end up in Reno from Alaska?
I think that was a plan. They wanted to go gamble.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't even know. But we were in Reno. They went off to do slot machines or whatever, left me and my two brothers together. One of my brothers is a little older, so he was we were at McDonald's, and when we were leaving McDonald's, he had a quarter or some change, and he put it in. I mean, here me and my brother, 13, 14 years old, with my older brother who's 18, and we're going around to the slot machines with him, just having a good time, winning money. So it was really funny. Just we're over there cheering him on, watching him win, and they ended up kicking me and my 14-year-old brother out of the casino. but we're telling my older brother, "Hey, go play, go there, go there." So he ended up winning. I think somewhere between $500 and $1,000. For us, it seemed like a lot at that time. So it was really fun. So yeah, it was an adventure for us for sure.
We got a question for you. Let's see. So, growing up with seven siblings must be been pretty wild at times. Lots of chaos, but probably a lot of fun and built-in best friends too. Who are you closest to? Any sibling rivalry?
I'm pretty close with them all. The older ones, I mean, the older ones are like 60 now. I mean, they're 20 years older, so those ones were a little more distant, almost uncle like. They were that old. But my two sisters, they really were the protector types. Actually, when I was in high school, I lived with my brother. So, and it was almost like having your big brother. Um, playing video games with you. He was doing all these things. I mean, a lot of what he was during my high school time kind of, built the father I became. Just
Mhm.
well, I want to play with my kids and do these things too. I look forward to that time. So it was kind of cool having that. So always, all of them were protectors through it all. Um, yeah, my brother who was a year older, I mean, we were always going through the shit together. So anything that was, crappy or shitty, I mean, he was there with me. So it made things not so shitty. So that was kind of the best part of having that one that was real close in age, just for that reason. Just made life not as hard. But it was nice to have such a variety of big brothers and big sisters uh, growing up. So one of my brothers, my oldest brother, he's actually, autistic. He's mentally challenged. Then the next one, he's gay. I think all the Polynesian families have one of those in the family. and then, and then the third brother, he was a preacher. So,
Oh, wow.
he was yeah. So it's such a variety of people. And then I have two brothers that ran the streets a little bit. So and then my sisters, both were athletes, and so that's where I had the variety of um, people to look up to, and right or wrong in any of it, I got to see, um, growing up, so I think because of all of that, I was always very open to kind of whether gay people or mentally challenged or
Mm.
faith. I mean, all of it was just taking it with a grain of salt, and just always being open minded to kind of trying to
Mm.
understand other people. So,
I have a question. We have another question for you. Oh, and by the way, Franny messaged on Facebook. She says, "Hi, Mao."
hi, Franny, what's up?
All right. Has your relationship with your siblings changed over time?
I think it's gotten stronger. Um, Yeah, it's always been, we've had our challenges growing up, but like I said, we've always been there to support each other. So, when I was in middle school, my older brother and older sister had a way of trying to motivate me and my brother. We were the youngest, to do better in school. So it was that, because we ended up going to Clark Middle School in
Mm.
Mountain View, and that's where we lived for a long time. But they try to motivate us to do better by, if you got an A, you got a pair of pants. If you got
Oh,
a B, you got a shirt. If you got a C, you got underwear and socks. And a
mm.
D, you didn't get anything. So, that worked. It helped. I mean, I was on honor roll probably the only time in my entire life in seventh grade. So, and it's all because of them trying to figure out and you know, you um, play the parent role that they were kind
Wow.
of thrown into. So it was cool. Yeah, very thankful for my siblings.
We have another question. How has your family reacted to your brother being gay and autistic? Has that affected how you relate to each other?
Um, hmm. I think, in a lot of the Polynesian families, faith is very heavy. A lot of the parents are very old school. Um, they believe that they can pray it away. Uh, but, we know what science is and what kind of facts are. So I think from there, it was sad to kind of see some of that. It's more of to love them as they are, and
Mm.
um, that's where it was for us as siblings. We didn't care about anyone being gay or autistic or any of that. They were my brothers, and that was it. So, but it allowed me to move in the world with more of an open mind towards others like that. And, I think the biggest thing is if you truly love, then you're open, open minded, you're patient, you're understanding um, of that, of their situation, of how they are and what they are. I think, yeah,
Well, let's talk about you living with your brother. How did that happen as even as a teenager? Because you would think you'd be with your parents. How did that came
yeah.
about?
Yeah, once we got to Alaska, I think I was seventh grade, um, eighth grade, um, my dad got a call from his siblings, his family, about and it's a cultural thing that, they wanted him back in Samoa. They picked him to um, go after the Satele title. So, um, he being, a part of that family and part of the family and one to represent the family, he was proud to do. So he left, and uh, let me get some water. Yeah, so he left. And, soon after that, my mom ended up leaving as well. And yeah, so they chased the title and did all those things. And yeah, I lived with my brother. So, and that's where I think the best part was during that time, it was me and my other brother. I mean, how old is he? I think he's probably 7 years older than me. Um, so he was thrust into, a lot of responsibilities, So him and my sister, too, both of them, do what they can because my other brother, I mean, he was only a year older than me. And so he was really making some really shitty choices. So,
Mm.
and I got to see. I was like, well, I don't want to be with his friends. I don't want to hang out with them. So what am I going to do? And I was only in ninth grade, so I got into sports at that time, and it was the part that saved me. It really provided me a consistent role model and held me accountable for me, but it motivated me to want to stay in school. I hated school, but I love to play basketball, I love to play football, and that's kind of what was. I was just yeah, and during that time, I mean, there's a lot going on. You're just trying to survive, you're trying to make it, you're trying to eat, just simple things that you should have. And, I was thankful to kind of have them to be there for me.
Do you think that sports also help make you forget about the things that you wish could have happened during that time of your life?
Well, I just remember thinking, I wouldn't leave my kids, So it was a thought back then, at that time, is that was something that I remember thinking, So yeah, having sports, it was a outlet. to, just let it all go, so give all your effort, give all your energy. If you're angry, go out there and, hit somebody, go out there and wear yourself out. So, but I mean, I enjoyed it though. I love playing sports. It was really something that I pushed on to my kids. I push on that, and it's not just sports. I think the question is that I throw to my kids and throw to other kids is, what do you love to do, or what do you like to do? What do you have interest in?
Mhm.
And then go after that. Hopefully that interest, that like, turns into a love, a passion, is what you want. So, and that's kind of where it was for me growing up. I just love to play. And yeah, I don't even know how to explain, but even as you go down that path, you run into some amazing people.
Mhm.
I've had some pretty awesome coaches in my life that saved me. So they were the ones that kind of became more father figure type, holding you accountable, responsible for your actions, and motivating you. So really blessed that that was how I was able to kind of figure out my next steps.
We have a question for you. I appreciate you sharing your emotions. We all experience challenges in life. Have you ever had a conversation with your brother about the difficulties he may have faced while raising you?
Um, I might ask him tonight, actually. So him and my sister-in-law T, they were amazing. They were pretty awesome. So, I mean, they're working, doing as best as they can. Um, but I think they enjoyed it too. Seeing me succeed and do well in sports, and it was a pride, that they took to, I'm kind of their first kid, as I see it, So, um, yeah, it's something I think I'll have a discussion with him about. I've never really asked that question, but thank you for that.
I believe they named one of their son after you, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I was there. Yeah, I mean, life is hard, things are tough, and it's a joy, it's a pride that I had. I remember, we lived in Mountain View in a one-bedroom apartment, like four of us. So, I mean, it was tough during that time, and he was a premature baby, and I remember just being in there and just like, wow, this is, I think I was 17, 18 at that time. So it's crazy to kind of go through all that time and to be where we're at now and seeing these little knuckleheads all grown up.
That's a good experience you got to experience while you were growing up and seeing that blessing. Um, let's talk about how it all started with you with college and football and basketball. Which sports was it that was your favorite? Was it basketball? Was it football?
I didn't, I was playing football my freshman year, and my coach said, if you want to get better, play basketball. If you want to get faster, play basketball. So right away, I jumped into basketball, and I just really fell in love with it. I hate running, but I mean, basketball makes you run. If you're competitive, if you don't want to look bad, you got to run. You got to go. So, and playing basketball and really falling in love with it. I mean, it made football easier. They
Mhm.
don't run like you do in basketball. It's a whole different. And I think soccer is similar. It works your footwork and your conditioning like no other. And so I always tell my kids, if you can play basketball, you can play football, and especially if you're a big guy, big kid, you're gonna fit in pretty good if you like to hit. So yeah, football was the first love, and then basketball came, and it just, yeah, it was right there with it. I mean, I don't have a choice between both. I just love to play in both.
I know that you mentioned there was a talk that you gave in Alaska, I think a couple of months ago or last year, and you had talked about how you couldn't go to the D1 you needed to go to because you had a lot of colleges after you. And so you took the JUCO route.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I took the JUCO route. I mean, when I was leaving high school, my grades sucked. Like I said, the only thing keeping me in school was playing sports. So, I knew, I was getting recruited by pretty much every school in the country in football, but they knew my grades, so I already knew JUCO was going to be the route. My basketball coach told any basketball coaches out there, "Don't even try. He's going to go play football." But you know, my whole plan was when I left high school was, okay, I'm going to go to JUCO and I'm going to play basketball just so I don't get hurt. So once I go to D1, then I'm going to play basketball and football. So that was really what happened too. From there, I went to a junior college in Kansas, and I played basketball there. We were not a ranked team, but we finished third in the country my freshman year. We were ranked number one in the country my sophomore year.
Wow.
And yeah, we did pretty well. And so I had the chance to, I had some scholarship offers to San Diego State, Purdue. I mean, this is all basketball too. Idaho, um, let's see now, Hawaii. Yeah, there are a bunch of schools after me for basketball, but I wouldn't go anywhere unless they let me play football too. So Idaho, they said, "Hey, yeah, come on over. You can play both for sure." And no other school would. So that's why I ended up in Idaho, just because they let me play both sports.
Question. Can you share what led to your decision to pursue a career in the NFL?
It was just kind of a given. I mean, I was a 6'6" center, playing basketball, so the height thing was a disadvantage for me. But I usually weighed more than most of the basketball guys anyway. They were just taller. But for me, yeah, being 6'6", 300 pounds, uh, football was kind of the way. So, and I knew that when I left high school. I had a friend ask me, what are you going to play, NBA or NFL? I said, well, I don't think I'm tall enough for the NBA, but I think I'm going to go to NFL, and that was kind of the conversation. And, that's kind of what I've always thought and expected. I was kind of built like most of, the polys just kind of built for it. We kind of enjoy the physicality of it, but it was fun either way. I mean, but I don't feel like too for basketball. I worked at it. I just kind of enjoyed rebounding and being physical out there,
Mhm.
and that was about it. Just hurting people. I was pounding on people. So, uh, but for football, it was something that I knew I always had an advantage, and I like to run. So,
Mhm.
and that's all from basketball. I mean, just chasing people, I enjoyed all of that. It's like playing tag out there. Who's got the ball? Let me go tag them.
I,
But
I have to
yeah, so
ask
I
about your
knew I
family.
had the opportunity.
Mhm. I have to ask about all your siblings back home, the
What?
excitement that they must have had, to see their brother on TV. So, how was that for your whole family and your parents at the same time seeing that? And also, were you the only one that played pro? Did your siblings, any of them join
Yeah.
the
No,
NFL or NBA or?
no, I was the only one to. One of my brothers did go to college, but he didn't go far in football. But the other one got injured um, prior in high school, and then the other one was running the streets, and the other one was pretty gay. He could have been a cheerleader, but
You could have joined our
um,
cheerleading
no,
squad
yeah,
in high
but they
school.
were all yeah, he could have been cheerleading. No, he was my biggest cheerleader, that guy. So I mean,
Oh,
he's at the gay bars watching my games. I mean, just really proud, and that's what it is. I mean, I went to the gay bar with him in San Diego, and I walked in there, man. They all it was like Cheers, man. They all knew my name. I was like, whoa, whoa, what the heck? So it was pretty funny stuff, you know. So I mean, everyone buying me beer. I was like, oh, this okay. This is kind of all right.
Oh.
This is cool. But yeah, it was funny. But no, and that's what it was. I mean, it was just the pride. Um, they all had. They were very proud, knowing that I made it, and it's we
Oh.
make it. That's kind of how it is and stuff. So it was nice. It was awesome.
Question. Let's see. What impact did being drafted in 2000 have on your life, both personally and professionally?
Um, I it was a great impact. I think when there's a perception that is had that when you get drafted, you come into all this money. So everyone, you know, is thinking you're rich and thinking all these things. My parents didn't even know I played football till like my last year. So it was kind of
Wait.
tough
Hold on.
to
Your last year
that
in high
they
school or in college?
in college. So yeah, it was yeah. So it was just it's kind of that kind of sucked, I guess.
Oh.
That they really didn't pay attention or know so much. But I don't put it all on them. I put it on life. There's a lot going on in their life and a lot that they're trying to take on too. So, but yeah, after that they kind of paid attention a little more, and so but yeah, that kind of sucked about it. So um yeah, but
You know what?
it is what it is. I mean, they were happy and proud, well, they're I know that my parents are very faith based, very heavy, and I know they always pray for me. I mean, or I would call her and we have prayer, before the game starts, before I leave the
Oh.
locker room. It's a prayer with my mom. Um, but that's what I've always known and always felt from my parents and my grandma too. So faith has always been a strong part of us. Always feel protected, covered by the blood, is what she'd say. So that's why I feel like I'm still around, still here, still happy, still thankful, still blessed, just to live.
Still have your hair?
For now, I mean, I'm 48, so I figure it's gonna fall out soon. Yeah, so my dad, yeah, my brother is bald. He's like 55, so I don't have much time. So, enjoy it while I can, and
Mhm.
you know,
Okay, so we got a question. What emotions did you experience knowing
we'll
they
see.
weren't
So we'll see
physically
how
there?
long it lasts.
Yeah. What emotions did you experience knowing they weren't physically there, but you still felt their presence spiritually?
Um, I I think that that's probably as best as they can do and as best as they can be. You know, yeah, as siblings, I feel that all the time. So even now they're gone, I feel like they're up there watching over and protection. So I mean, no matter what choices they made in their life, I know they love me. So I mean, they make their choices that me as a parent I wouldn't have made. But it doesn't change the fact that they love me. So that's and that's the best part of it all. No matter how they've been, my mom's pretty crazy. She's always been. She's the, uh, she says a lot of negative things, but I know she doesn't mean it. She used to tell me growing up how ugly I was, how black I was, and things like that. But she'd laugh about it. When the nurse brought you to me, I said, "What's this? Are you sure this is my kid?" So she'd tell me these stories growing up, and then I'm older now and stuff. and now she's like, "This is my son. This is my son." No, I'm not. So it's always a funny, back and forth with each other. But she's always giving me shit uh, growing up about things. But she did that with all of us. So, um, I think everyone's got some trauma with their parents and how they've been raised by them and the choices they've made that we all can share about. So,
Yes. And
no
we can
different
laugh
here
about
with
it.
mine.
I met your
Yeah,
I'm so
yeah. No, and
sorry.
that's the best part.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Mo.
What's
I'm so
that?
sorry. Condolences. I didn't know your parents passed away. And so
Yeah, yeah.
I met your mom
No,
and
it's
dad,
and that's the best part. Oh yeah. No,
and
they're good people.
yeah.
Yeah, they
And
have regrets,
it's
so I mean,
crazy because
I
they're both tall, and so I'm 5'5", looking up and trying to say hi to them. But um, I think wasn't your dad like a math teacher?
yeah, he actually was the principal at what high school was that?
Was it Fangaitua?
Waitua High School?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So is that the Vikings?
Yes.
Is that okay? So my middle name is Viking,
Ah.
and that's but yeah, he was the principal back in the day and stuff. He's got his master's degree from University of Washington. One of the first of the I think there was a exchange program that sent Samoans into the mainland, and he went to Missouri. I mean, there was just it's a crazy just thinking about them showing up there with nothing and
Mhm.
being able to survive and make it through a lot of what that time was the 50s or 60s.
Yeah.
It's just a different time. It was kind of awesome to know the challenges that they went through and what they were able to put through. But nothing he ever really talked about. So I mean, that's where he's had. They both have had just no different. So you put it all in the past, you leave it there, and you just kind of keep moving on, and yeah, hoping for the best.
I have to ask you, Ma. You talked about how your mom was, clowning on you, about calling you ugly and stuff. But a little bird told me otherwise. I heard there was a lot of girls trying to get with you during that time when in your single phase and during the time when you're in the NFL. You had to make a phone call to somebody to ask what to do.
I don't know what you know. So, look at you. You got to spell it. I don't. No, I mean, I was single. I never thought I'd be married. So I mean, it's crazy to yeah, all of that. I thought I was going to be a wild child, just kind of Rolling Stone kind of deal. But I settled down and yeah. So, but I had fun. I enjoyed my single life a lot. No, college and I guess I grew up a little bit.
How did you find the love of your
It's funny you
life?
brought that up, but well, and that's it. When you're not looking, you kind of run into it. So, I was just out one night in Arizona, and we ran into each other. Actually, she bought me a drink, and I remember like when she walked up to me and, can I buy you a drink? I remember I looked around, me? So it was, from there, that's where we connected. And, yeah, it was funny, so from there we connected. Um, we actually met that night, but we didn't see each other for a little while. And, once we ran into each other again, she was like, I want to take you on a date. So, not
Oh.
only she bought me a beer, she took me on a date. I felt like we switched roles. What happened here? I said, okay. So,
Oh.
so yeah, I was, yeah. And from there, we she was there with me when things got tough, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what you want is someone to go through some of the challenges with you, and she was all that, so I owe her, and I owed
Mm.
her, and I still do, she's given me
I take it she was there during the time when you got injured. Tell us about that with the neck injury.
5 beautiful. Yeah, yeah. No, and the neck injury is, they say, many a lot of the players have it. They just don't know till it happens, so
Oh,
it is a genetic defect. Spinal stenosis is a narrowing of the spine. But they say it is common in a lot of the athletes, Polynesians. um, but it's just, you get hit, just the 1 in a billion hits, that you take, or just it was perfectly lined up in a certain way. And so that's kind of what it was for me. So from there, it was just trying to figure out what to do next, and figure out life after football. Life after football was, well, damn, now what do I do? And so it was very tough. It was scary, challenging, depressing. But it was to change the mindset. I was a party animal, having fun, and playing and having a good time with everybody. But when the party's over, that's where it's like, oh, now real life begins. So
yeah. Which leads to this question. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced physically and emotionally during that transition?
like many, when you go through such a change, that you never expected, it's depressing. You always think you're going to be in the NFL for the rest of your life, and so that's where I was. I didn't plan or prepare for life after. So, I was lost. But I was very depressed, and really right away, I was just drinking a lot. Just I remember, being in Arizona and just drinking every day, and it was just trying to drown something, and hopefully it changes the next day, but it was still the same issue. That it's over, and you got to figure out life after. Now what? But one thing I remember telling my wife, my girlfriend, I want to move back to Alaska. We need to start over. We need to start life again. So she agreed, and we ended up moving back to Alaska, and just on to the next chapter. So that's exactly where I was. And I remember moving back, and you know regretting some of my choices. In college, I didn't get my college degree because, like I said, I thought I was going to be in the NFL all my life. So I was like, well, damn, I should have did my school. I should took care of business. But that was a regret that I took as a parent, and said to my kids, okay, you're not going to have this issue. So I mean,
Yeah.
it was something that helped with that side of things. But it was that when I moved back, it's like, okay, well, she's pregnant. Let's, I got to get to work and stuff. So couldn't find a steady job, or a decent job, because I needed my degree. So um, yeah, I was working in a warehouse. I think it was like 15, 20 bucks an hour. This is,
Yeah.
just 6 months ago, I was in NFL. It was very depressing enough, but you had to move on and try to figure out your family.
We got a question. What role did your family play in supporting your recovery or transition?
They were very supportive. I actually moved up and stayed with my sister for about a month, and and my sister-in-law, they were supportive. They were there. I think they were just happy to see us, and there's not much you can do. It's over, and you're moving on, and so that's where I was. And um, I think they were just happy that I was back in Alaska.
Mhm. What were the moments where you felt like your medical condition put a strain on your relationships?
Well, I think it the neck injury, it didn't last long. I mean, basically you're paralyzed, but it went away, so that was good. So really, I was just happy to walk and be, So from there, it's like, you know what, I'll figure out what the heck to do in life. I'm just happy to kind of be able to walk, and it's still very sad to not be in the NFL and all those things, but there's some positives in all this. So it's still also that, I think a lot of choices that I made were just, I wish I would have listened to my coaches more, to do the right things in school and all those things. So for me, I mean, just moving forward, I just had regrets on, the past couple of years in college and not finishing up in the way that I should have, So being a student athlete, I was just an athlete, just a jock, just having fun, having a good time. But if those things still didn't happen, I mean, if none of that happened, I probably wouldn't be the person I am right now. Because even after that, I remember thinking back to where, um, I said, I'm here because, a lot of people played a role in my life. So I was very thankful and fortunate that all of that happened because then I started thinking, I was like, well, shoot, someone saved me and someone helped me. And, how do I give that back? What do I do or what can I do? So those are things that I started to figure out and trying to take those steps to move in that direction.
And moving in that direction, you created the Alaska Pride. How did that come about?
Yeah, that was all part of that. My coaches saved me, and I want to do that for others. I feel like my experiences growing up were that when I was lost, there were those who were in my way, or angels as I see them. They were people, coaches, my brothers, my sisters. They were there, So I just wanted to figure out how to be there for other kids that were going through going through from high school into the real world, because even as the NFL ended, I was probably around 25, 26. That, I said, man, if I would have just graduated from high school at 18, I wish I would have been there and started over then instead of here I am at 26 starting over. So if I would have started at 18, but then as I'm saying that, I think about those high school kids who are about to do that, So that's where kind of Alaska Pride came about. I realized, okay, well, maybe I can train high school kids in football or basketball, and build a relationship with them. And then also, mentor them, teach them about life and kind of things after high school. And that's where it became hey, what are you going to do after high school? And Alaska, like Samoa and other places, there's only a few options. To after high school, whether you're military, you're going to college, starting a business, or, vocational training. So, that was something that, became heavier trying to get kids into more of because the percentage of kids don't go to college, they just start working right away. So it became important to try to, steer them towards vocational training and other options. Um, or military, just getting something started. You're better off to start at 18 than you are at 26, like me. So, so I started working with the athletes in that way. But, you know, I realized, the kids are into more things than just sports. So it became music was another thing that I said, well, I don't do music, so let me go find me a music mentor and bring him in so that he can mentor kids through music. So and everything that we're doing, and even in art, it was the same thing. Finding a mentor for art, finding a mentor for poetry. I mean, it's whatever the kids were into. But as we're doing that, the program grew. We go from 20 kids to where we were at 80 to 100 kids. And then, culture was another part. So we started doing poly clubs too at the high schools. Um, then as we're doing poly clubs, some other kids are like, hey, what about breakdancing? We breakdance. So started doing breakdancing. I mean, it just became such a diverse group. Um, but it was always trying to make sure that you could find a mentor that can build a relationship with the kids so that they can hear you. They're I think very important, building the trust so that a kid will listen. So it took some time, but I mean, we were at a few schools, few high schools doing this where we had poly club, a dance club, a music club, a art club, but all for the reason of to figure out life after high school. But as we're doing that, these are a lot of the street kids too. So it became kind of a youth violence prevention too, and you know, um, fighting substance abuse. I mean, we're just
Mhm.
trying to do it all in one. Put every bird in the sky, and we're just trying to hit them with the rocks we got. So, which were music, art, dance, and athletics. But a lot of times they were all the best kids at a lot of these areas. So you're just trying to teach them how to be a leader.
Mhm.
But I just take it back to where in mentorship, where my big brother just played with us. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's all we ended up doing a lot of times too, that we were always there.
Mhm.
Whatever they needed. I mean, it's kind of like the gang mentality is, you show them love, you give them the things they want, hey, we're here for you. So we were real with that. We're very genuine in what we were doing. We loved what we were doing. And, I think it showed, through the amount of kids that wanted to be with us and be a part of the programs. So it was really awesome to kind of move in that way because I started from nothing. I didn't know how to write grants, and I started going to the library and reading more on how to write grants. And I started writing my own grants and started to get grants. And so then the groups just kept growing, but it became a solution in the city too. So
Mhm.
politics got involved in it as well. I mean, just a lot of people were participating and supporting what we were trying to do.
Mhm. We got a question, and you probably had I'm sure you answered this question already, but what's the biggest challenge in helping teens break out of that cycle, and how did you overcome it?
I think always the challenge is consistency. When you're working with kids that were like yourself, at risk, their trust is really the biggest part of it. But trust is a time thing. Relationship building is a time thing. If you're inconsistent with the time that you say, if you say you're going to be there on Monday at 3 o'clock and you're not there, I mean, they might forgive you the first time, but the second time it's like, no thanks. So
Yeah.
that's where the numbers start to die off. So everything, I mean, it's almost like a parent saying, oh, I'll play with you tomorrow. I'll play with you tomorrow. No thanks.
Yeah.
So I always, you know, made it a priority to always be there and always do and sacrifice what I have and what I can to make sure the kids that supported and were participating in my programs had what they needed, which was usually a space, to do what they came there for, and while we're there, it's like, well, dang, they're gonna be hungry, so I gotta find them food. Well, dang, we need music equipment. So I mean, and that's the best part is, around the community there are people who have these things and they see what I'm doing, so they were donating things, and it
Oh.
was always easier for me to go ask the community for the needs that the kids had. I had no problem doing that. It was very hard to ever ask for anything I needed, but for the kids, I'll be out there begging like a mug just to make sure they got what they need. So um, it always made, and that's it. It was just, it's a time thing. You have to be there for them. So as much as you can, but be there for them when you say you're going to be there for them.
Mhm.
So
We have a question. If you could tell your younger self or a young athlete today one thing, what would it be?
um, It's something I say to my kids right now, and it's that I regret not working harder at the craft I love. That here I am older. I actually work out pretty regularly, but it wasn't something I did younger. I was just blessed with size and talent, but I didn't work on the skill. I wish, and that's where on the basketball side, I didn't work on my skills. I was just always very much just a rebounder and a physical presence, and that's probably my biggest thing is that um, you're gonna get older and you're gonna regret the time you didn't put in. So put it in now is very important, but also on the academic side, take care of your business. And that's something with my own. I make sure I should never ever have to check on your grades. That should never be an issue in any part of, and they know that. That's probably, other than that, I mean, I tell them, I'm there to cheer and be every part of whatever you need me to be, whether you play a sport or not. Take care of that business right there, get that certificate, um, and which I expect. So
So going back on the program that the Alaska Pride and other programs that you have put in place, a lot of people don't know that you have put a lot of sacrifice of being away from your family and your growing family with your kids and your wife.
yeah.
So how did that affected you, and how did it affect your family?
Um, It it was something I always tried to balance, but I mean, we would go without, so there were times, I mean, that was the toughest part of the nonprofit role for me as a small nonprofit, and is that, this money has to stretch and it has to not only cover the cost of what I need for the programs, but it's got to also cover my bills. And so, that really was always the frustration of it. But I and it was that I'm just a one man show, so I got to be the executive director, I got to be the program coordinator, I've got to be the event coordinator, and I've got to be the fundraiser, so the grant writer. And so you have to wear every hat but it's something that you can't stop doing because something you're going to run out of money. So it was always that I always had to chase funds. I always had to be at the community meetings. I've always had to be at the schools with the kids. If they got in trouble, I had to be there as a part of that. And not only that, I've got my own kids and my wife, and so I have to try to figure out. But also, as I'm doing that, I remember thinking, I'm like, oh, what programs would my kids actually enjoy and be a part of? So those were, it just kind of made me look at programs like a father, that okay, I would want my kids in these types of programs. I would want my kids to do these. Oh, I think they'd have fun this, but I'm a big kid too myself, so I kind of enjoy some of the things we were doing. So it was always more of a fun that if I didn't think it was fun or you know interesting, and I don't think they will either. So, but it always showed in the amount of kids we had. We always had a large number of high school teens participating. But even as you're doing the work, you realize, like, man, these kids, as far as their education, they're they're 16, they're 14 to 18, but some of them aren't very good at math. Some of them aren't very good at other things. I'm like, man, we got to start in middle school. Oh, well, dang, we got to get to elementary school. It's like, and then, prepare them so that, they, when they get to high school, they know we're there for
Mhm.
them. So it just became bigger and a lot more things to take on, but it opened up the door. I said, well, now we can get our high school teams that we believe are the leaders. we can bring them down to the middle schools and we can bring them down to the elementary schools
Mhm.
because they're showing that leadership. And a lot of them didn't get it, but I said, well, you play basketball, right? Okay, well, you can teach a kid how to dribble a basketball, right? You can play tag, right? I mean, you're just building relationships. Don't make it any harder
Mhm.
than what it is already. You're just being a big brother or a big sister. You're an artist, you can draw. Guess what? Go draw with the kids. Show them how to draw, keep it simple, every part of and encouraging. So you're not only teaching them to be a leader, but you're providing some consistency to the younger kids too. So it was a nice circle that was created. But you see, it becomes such a bigger picture, this work. So,
Yeah. Well, we got a couple of questions. Here's the first one.
is it
What-
Honolulu girl? Hey, girl, you asked too many questions. Why you talk so much? My bad, my bad.
Looking back on your journey, what practices or values help keep you grounded today?
Hmm. Let me see that question again.
Sure.
My values. I'll keep you grounded today. Um, I don't know. I mean, I I I think the biggest thing that I push to my kids is just effort. Everything's effort and love. If you love what you do, then it shows in your effort.
Mhm.
So those are probably the two biggest things that I always, as simple as I can keep it with them is it should always show in your effort. But
Mhm.
sometimes there's things that you do that you don't like, but you're doing it for the purpose of something that you love. So that's
Mhm.
why you go through some of these harder times, these challenges, because it gets you to your next goal. Is kind of what is for how I push it to mine. I should never question effort. It's always the biggest thing that I throw out to them, whatever, in school or sport or anything, any part of life. It's always comes back to the effort piece for me. So
Mhm.
that's the biggest part I throw back at them. Quit asking me questions, Honolulu girl. Oh no.
And then pops the other one. What advice would you give to someone new to the grant writing process, especially when it comes to applying for federal funding?
um, it just depends. If when it comes to grant writing, it's especially at the federal level. You've got probably 1,000 other nonprofits going after that same grant. So and it depends on the requirements of the grant from your nonprofit. So if you're a new nonprofit, you're not going to qualify for federal grants. So it's looking at what other organizations or what other places can you get grant funding. And usually you go through the city, go through the state, but the higher amount, the more requirements that you'll have for grant funding. So I'd say that, $10,000 and below is probably where a newer nonprofit should start. But if I'm more of look at a nonprofit and I'm just looking at what they're required, how long they've been a nonprofit. Do they have a board? Do they, have they filed their taxes? If those are things that they've cleared, then it's pretty easy to get funding as I see it. But now the world's changed a little bit to where a lot of the funding has been cut in these areas of culture and diversity and education, art. They're cutting all those funds, so it becomes that it's really not the federal funding you go through. Here in Alaska, we got a Rasmussen Foundation, and we've got a few others, but they fund minority and cultural um, type projects. So I think every state has a Rasmussen type foundation. So those are good places to begin, because if you can get a grant award from one of those organizations, then that's kind of put on your resume, so that, okay, well, also that if you get 10,000 and you're successful with it, then you can apply for the 25,000. And if you're successful with that, then you can apply for the 100,000. You see, it just keeps moving up. But I also, if I get 10,000 or 25,000, I'm usually going to get it matched by the city or by a business, So those are a lot of things I do so I can double up the money that we get.
So you probably mentioned some of the challenges, but here's a question. And what are some of the biggest challenges you face in applying for federal grants, and how did you overcome them?
Didn't we just talk that?
Yeah, yeah. So
That
so and
was-
then here's another one. Let me get out of this one. I promise you this is better.
no, that was the one I just responded to. So
Yes. So she's saying, thank you for taking the time to answer all my questions. Your insights are truly appreciated. You're doing an incredible job for the community and the culture. I have no more questions.
sure you don't.
Just sincere gratitude and well
You're welcome.
deserved accolades to you. So, Mao,
That's all right. Ask all the questions you want.
despite all the accolades and the challenges that you've overcome and faced, right? Let's talk about your family. You have a son that's getting ready to go to Utah Utes. He's a senior in high school. Congratulations. And then you have
Thank you.
Bishop with his own, he's making a name for himself at the University of Anchorage, Alaska basketball. And tell us about
Yeah,
your family.
yeah,
You have 5 kids and your beautiful wife.
yeah. No, yeah. They're all a blessing, every single one of them. I like I say, I mean, it's just more their efforts show in the outcomes. So, I don't put it past what that is. They try hard, and they're rewarded. So, I'm just very happy for them. So they know. I think the best part is they want to do well and make their parents proud, and I feel that for sure and stuff. And yeah, no, I got my oldest daughter's got her master's degree. So she's, and that's the thing, they're not all athletes. So she's off working and being a counselor and trying to, you know, uh, be a solution to at-risk youth um, in Arizona. So that's cool on her side. I got another daughter who's in the middle of her journey, and she's in college and wants to be a dentist. So, but and then I got the 3 boys. They're athletes and they enjoy that. I say, as you're moving in the athletic stuff, but don't forget about your grades. Make sure but that's not even like I said, that's not a question. It's an expectation, that I should never have to ask about this. It shouldn't be an issue. You're on honor roll, you better be on honor roll. Shoot, oh yeah, that's great. You're supposed to do that. So that's kind of how the dad is. Just yeah, you're supposed to.
Mhm.
But no, I mean, and my wife, she's awesome. Just being the best support for them, for sure, and myself. So we're able to make it work because she does everything. So I just do what I can. So I'm just her sixth child sometimes.
I have to ask. Oh, here's a question. You're right. I
You
lied. What ways do you see your values or legacy reflected in your children's success?
um I really don't care about their success stuff. I just want them to be happy. You know, I think that's the biggest thing is that they, when we're gone, I just want to make sure that they're there for each other, um, more than anything. So, you know, they, if they're, I think as far as their success, like I said, I expect them to do well. I want to be there for the hard times. So um, yeah, when life is shitty, I tell them call me. So call me, talk to me when you're going through things, when you're lost, trying to figure out life and any choices, life choices. Call your dad. You know, yeah, as much as possible. And every part of when you question, when you're afraid, call me. Talk to me. When you got drama, call your mama. But no, that's where it's at for me. Like I said, I don't worry about their success. I more am about their happiness. So you can be happy in failure, but it's to say that you tried your ass off and you know you lose. You get up and you try again. Um, you regret never regret effort is kind of something I always share with them. You know, to as long as that is, then whatever the outcome is the outcome. You can't control some things, but as best as you can be. So, but always, yeah, I always try to push that more than anything. Just find your happiness, find your love. Um, but as you're in these places of love, they're not easy either. So, I mean, you're gonna deal with challenges of all kinds, but you'll deal with it all if you love. So that's why you're there. That's why you're doing. That's why you struggle. That's why every part of. Um, so, yeah, that's where I'm at with that.
We have another question. You know how in our culture, parents can be tough on us or give us those life talks. Was there something your parents did that really stuck with you over the years?
Um, my dad he was always all about education. So, um, and that was probably the biggest thing on his side was, for both of them, it was, do well in school, but um, always God, God first, look to God, pray to God. That was always the part from them. My dad and my mom, they both, as far as the culture goes, they all said, when I die, don't do the fa Samoa, and we don't want you guys to do that, but it ends up being because your aunties and your uncles are all there, and it just changes kind of how it all moves. But they didn't want it to be so heavy in that way, just because they didn't want the burden on us. So, and that's kind of um, they tried to keep certain things in a certain place, but the culture is the culture. So yeah, I mean, you have to deal with it in some way, but they know um, I'm always willing to speak and get in front of people and kind of share what we have and what we don't have, because I think that in our people we're too prideful to where you know it's okay if you give $100 and you can't give $1,000. I say I would rather even without that, I'm just happy you're here. You know, I'd rather take you than your money. But we're stuck in such a prideful place to where, going broke um, to give, and how they are. They say it out loud what you give, what your family gives, and it's such a kind of a backwards kind of deal. From especially from our culture that's all about the love piece, and it's I guess the more money you give, it says the more you love or something like that, and just a kind of a wrong way to do as I see it. So, like I said, I even when my mom passed, she didn't want to do anything. Um, yeah, she just wanted no one there. She didn't want us to tell anybody. But you know, word spreads, and next thing you got 100 people or so. At now you got to do the make sure everyone's got their meals and make sure everyone gets their money back, and just a craziness. So, but that's why they didn't let me do it. I'd be up there. Okay, thank you. Thank you. You're not getting nothing back. We appreciate you being here. God bless you. Good night.
Okay, seriously, my last question. This is from Honolulu Girl. You share that your children you share that your children's happiness bring you peace, but do you feel fulfilled with where your own journey has led you so far?
I'm just I am because I never thought I'd be this old. I think as we're getting older, you've seen your own family pass at 45, 30, it's rough, so it just makes you appreciate so much more in just the time. So that's why I say I'd rather, one of my cousins was asking like, what's gonna happen for Kingston's graduation? What are you gonna do? Or who's coming? Or I said, who cares? We could have it at McDonald's as long as the family comes. We're good,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, no need for all the extra, and that's where I'm at. I'd rather, just be with my family at McDonald's chilling. Um, and all of it, I don't we don't need much. I'll take time with my siblings wherever I can take it. And it could be in the middle of the storm and rain and snow, all that. But they're there with me, and same with my kids. Yeah, it doesn't matter in any way. And all I'm looking forward to is just another year. Just the health issues that we all deal with as we get older. I'm just trying to stay, and that was my motivation. Just I want to be around for my kids. So I start working now, trying to be somewhat healthy a little bit. Just so I can. Yeah, I now if I'm 48 and trying to get to 50, so knock on wood. So, but as we're getting there, we're going to so many funerals, and so it just makes you really thankful for time. So, and out of all of it, I just want to see family. I want to see my loved ones. So I'm
I,
happy with the journey wherever it takes me.
I have to ask, if God gave you a chance to bring one person back to life, who would it be and why, and what would you do and what would you say?
Oh, mm. I mean that's a hard one. There's so many that have passed before their time. So I mean I really, yeah, I can't even say. I just there's too many. So I kind of, for me, I just look forward to seeing them when my time. So um, yeah, but I really can't choose. There's just too many of them. So yeah.
We're so proud of you, Ma'o, especially being able to come on this show to share your journey. Um, and there's a lot of thing about Ma'o that a lot of people don't know, and we only know the surface. And we're so grateful that you were able to share that journey with the emotion and the part of it that we often don't see a lot, and the challenges that you had to go through with also with your nonprofit to help our our teenagers, our young youth, and our community. And I hope you do decide to go and chase being able to take a part in any of the positions, the political side, even though we say we're not going to talk about it, because you are you're just that good role model. You deserve so much more. You and your wife, she is the big backbone to help, a strong man. There's that partner that keeps you going, and kudos to your wife, your beautiful wife, raising a beautiful family with a beautiful husband that endures so much with her. um and I know there's so much we could talk about, and I know you got so much to do. Is there anything that you want to say as we are about to close our podcast?
Um, No, as far as politics too, I think it's just more the sacrifice of time, and you know, uh, I encourage anyone in our community to do it. I think we need more examples to represent in that way. But the biggest thing we need is our kids from uh, high school, from 18 years old. What are their choices? So they can figure out right away. Make a choice is kind of what I share is because you need them to commit to something, commit to time, whether it's vocational training or military or college or starting a business. We just need more to kind of move in a way to kind of be these examples for us, whether parents, mom or dad. But we're missing a lot of examples. I
Yeah.
think, there's so much that we don't have in our lives, but I think it's important to try to create more examples uh, to to of happiness, not success, but of happiness. So, I just try to be one. Just by being me, whatever that is. But I'm thankful for the ones that created me too, and were there for me throughout my journey. And I'm just thankful for time, heavy, and the loved ones I have now, and enjoying that time with them.
You see, Honolulu girls got this last one for you. I
All right.
completely agree. Spending time with family and loved one is truly important, and above all, of the greatest priorities in life. Stay healthy, my friend.
Hey, you too. Well, in our community, I mean, we're probably top five in heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and so it means that we'll be at the hospital more than most communities. But Alaska, and that's kind of the similarities that Polynesians have with Alaska natives. See, they're very similar in all that, but the difference is they have the resources available to them here in Alaska that we don't. They've got the funding to help their folks, not only become healthy, but to get off substance abuse and get into rehab. So it'd be great to kind of figure out what organizations we have. That represent the Polynesian community so that we can know our resources wherever we are. But it's a big issue right now. Just, we're heavy in crime, domestic violence, substance abuse, but we're also high in, dropout rate um, and unemployment and low income. So there's a lot of negatives within our community. And, I'm not sure what the way out is other than supporting each other and encouraging each other to succeed. So, and if you can be a step for another in our if you can be a step for our people or someone out there, hopefully they can be a step for another too, and we just kind of create that cycle of helping
Yeah.
each other. But it's a tough one in our community. Always seems like a negative. Um, when someone's doing well, being successful, it's what's wrong with them, or always a finger pointed in some way,
Yeah.
just trying to tear them back down, and makes it a little harder to want to get out and help people and kind of put yourself out there to be. So,
I totally agree. But kudos to you, Tosi, for leading the way for many of us and making it positive for us to be able to have the strength to do the same. And many blessings to you and your family. And enjoy the rest of your day while you're there in Alaska. Hopefully, it
yep.
doesn't snow again.
It's gonna snow, but no, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you, Honolulu girl, for all the questions you had. No, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. Yeah, no, thank you. I haven't talked in front of people or all this stuff in a very long time. So nice to open my mouth again. You see, then I can't stop. So
No, it's good, but we need you more, Mao. We really need you more. So I'm telling you, that's why I needed you on here to get you back.
I like I told you, I just enjoy my family time, but I
Yeah.
definitely, have thought about, doing certain things, just kind of getting my feet wet back in the community. But, really right now, I just want to make sure my kids get out, and I got 2 more left, so in school, so almost cleared the net. So one day, one day.
We'll be here. We'll be waiting for you. So we'll enjoy your family, Ma'o. Take care, and say hi to the rest of your family for us. And take care. We'll
All
talk to
right.
you later. All
Thank
right. Have
you.
a good
Thank
day.
you for having me.
Okay, bye. Bye.